Hi, my name is Deepak Elias and I'm a product manager on the IBM BPM team. Welcome to this demonstration of the latest and greatest from IBM BPM for mobile. We're going to be looking at some of the latest features in IBM BPM version 855. We're going to start off with something called Client-Side Human Services. Client-Side Human Services is a new architectural framework that lets you cache the interaction required between a human and the process on the actual client device. These human service definitions which include the coaches, which is the UI for the actual BPM product, can be run completely on the mobile browser from which it's being rendered. We've also added a new web-based editor for the editing, including the definition, modification, and playback of these human services. Let's take a quick look at one of them. If I double-click the review claim human service, it brings up the web editor for human service modification. What we have here is the web editor for the human service. We start off by taking a look at the human service itself. It's a relatively simple flow with an initialization script that initializes some variables and a responsive coach. That is what we're going to focus on for this demonstration. If I click the Coaches tab and select the responsive coach, I now get access to my coach editor. The coach editor includes an actual canvas that lets me edit the coach, as well as on the right hand side a palette that lets me select the kind of controls that I want to use or leverage in my coach. I've highlighted a set of controls that we've added via the BPM community called light coach views. The light coach views are targeted to deliver a much faster and lighter and responsive experience on mobile devices. They require less connections to the server and send less data over the actual server connections, making them perfect for mobile access. We also have a couple of new features available in our editor for the coaches themselves, including the ability to target the coach for specific form factors. Remember, this is the same coach, but is targeted in a responsive fashion to multiple form factors. The form factor we're viewing right now is a large screen targeted at desktop. I can switch over to a tablet, which is the medium form factor, or to a phone, which is a small form factor. Now if you notice, as I change these form factors, the coach itself in the canvas is responding. So if I do that again, go back to the tablet form factor or the desktop form factor, you'll see pieces of the coach move around. This is the responsive nature of the coach. It's the same single coach, but it is showing us what it will do when displayed or rendered on these particular form factors. So for example, on the desktop form factor, the documents and the policy are all on the same line just next to each other, including the policy holder and the vehicle, which are on the same line next to each other. If I click over to the tablet form factor, you'll see that the vehicle has now moved below the policyholder section and has actually been minimized. I can click on it and maximize it as well. If I move over to the phone form factor, you will see that the document has now moved down below the actual policy information. The other piece that we've added for the actual editor itself is the nature of the actual canvas. It's WYSIWYG. So what you see is what you get. As you design these coaches, effectively what you're doing is creating the coach in the end state itself. It represents the state in which the coach is actually going to be rendered. Let's take a look at this coach as it's running. I'm going to hit the play button and launch the playback process. Here we have our human service that's being played back, that the coach is part of. The human services ran and rendered the coach, at which point we're actually interacting with it. We start off with a resolution of 1280 by 600, which might represent my desktop form factor, and I've designed it such that the policy and the documents are on the same line and next to each other, just as the policyholder and vehicle are within the policy section. If I squeeze this coach down to represent a smaller form factor, perhaps a tablet, you'll notice that the vehicle moves down under the policyholder and now is collapsed. I can expand it by simply clicking on the actual title and collapse it again by clicking on the title. If I make the coach even smaller, and that might represent perhaps a phone form factor, you'll notice that the document list now moves down underneath the policyholder. The vehicle still stays underneath the policyholder and is collapsed. So you'll notice that the actual coach itself is relaying itself out based on the different form factors that the coach is targeted to render itself on. So you still get a very good interaction with the user interface that's being defined for BPM, no matter on what device you're actually targeting. Responsive coach design is essentially this. You design a single coach and it re-renders itself on the different devices based on the best possible design that the process designer delivers. So let's take a quick look at how we actually design this responsive coach. I brought up the property section of the particular coach that I'm editing here, selected the policy section, and I've gone into the configuration tab. For the desktop form factor, which is what we're looking at right now, you'll notice that for the policy section I've chosen a horizontal layout. If I click my tablet form factor, you'll notice that for my policy section I've chosen a vertical layout, and similarly for the phone form factor it stays vertical. Now if I scroll down and choose my vehicle section, you'll notice here that it's actually minimized or collapsed for the phone form factor. The way I've done that is actually chosen the fact that it can be collapsed, as well as that it is rendered as collapsed when actually shown on this form factor the first time. If I move up to the tablet form factor, you'll notice that it's the same thing. It's collapsible as well as collapsed. However, if I go up to a desktop form factor, you'll notice that it is not collapsible at this point and it doesn't render as collapsed. Since I've got the maximum space on the desktop, I have the ability to just render it as is. Using these very easy and accessible configuration parameters, WYSIWYG, as well as the ability to select and target multiple form factors, it now becomes very easy in 855 to design a single coach that can run anywhere, on any kind of form factors, giving you first-class design capabilities for mobile itself. With that, I'd like to thank you for watching this demonstration.